could be qualified for a United Nations volunteer opportunity, but you may be rejecting yourself even before the UNV ever gets to see your application. Maybe you think that every position is unpaid, or you think that you need to have certain years of experience, or you may be disqualifying yourself because of your age. Here are the 7 myths that could be stopping you from getting an opportunity in the UNV when you actually qualify for one. So myth number 1, every UNV opportunity is unpaid. So this is the myth that is creating the most confusion when people hear the word volunteer. It makes people want to assume that every UNV opportunity is unpaid. Well, that is very inaccurate. A UNV volunteer assignment may provide benefits and allowances intended to help the volunteer maintain a secure standard of living without personally carrying the cost of services. So depending on the assignment, these volunteers can have a monthly allowance, a commuter allowance, a living allowance, meal allowance, but every UNV is specific about the language. These allowances are not salary or compensation, and the amount varies depending on the UNV body, the location, the type of work, the services, and the work arrangement. There's one thing that you should know. There are 2 types of volunteers. There is the online volunteers, and then there is the on-site volunteers. So the online volunteer is kind of different because they're not serving under the same UN volunteer contract. So if you do get online volunteer opportunity, you may find yourself not signing any contract. But if you do get a on-site volunteer opportunity, you will find yourself signing contract, actually going through the work arrangements and all of that. So this is something that you should know. So not all of UNV assignments are unpaid. Most are paid, and the most which are paid are usually the on-site volunteer opportunity. So I want to debunk another myth, is that you need years of experience to actually become a UNV volunteer or a UNV. So that was already oversimplification, and the 2026 categories make it even less accurate. Under the conditions of the service effective from April 2026, the community volunteer category can require no prior experience. So this is a good thing. If you are just graduating or if you are about to graduate, this does not hinder you from becoming a UNV volunteer. Special assignments, though, something to note, they do require 3 years of experience, and some expertise volunteer opportunities require a 7 years of experience. That does not mean that every beginner will qualify for an assignment. It still asks for specific education background, knowledge of skills, and sometimes even language. Remember, for you to apply, or rather to just be in any UN, they require for you to be bilingual. They need to know whole meaning, do you know any other language than English? Can you speak English fluently? So those are the things they may still ask and check, even though you do not require any work prior experience. There are things that some specific types of assignments will ask you if you qualify for. So instead of a beginner applying for expertise roles, it would rather make sense, if you are a beginner in the career world, if you start applying maybe to beginner levels like associates or community digital online activists, something simple like that. And then now when you start progressing in your career, you can now start thinking about expertise opportunities that actually require you to have 7 years or even 5 years minimum of experience. So debunking another myth is when people say that UNV is only for young people. Where did you hear that? Where did you get that? No. The current general age range is 18 to 80. That immediately destroys the idea that UNV is only for young people. So it doesn't matter if you're 18, because that's the lowest you can qualify to apply for a UN volunteer opportunity, or if you are 18, come on, you're not limited. So the age does not override the vacancy requirements, and it does not guarantee selection still. But assuming you are automatically too old or too young to contribute anything useful can remove you from consideration before the new assignment even begins. So that's an easy one. You don't need to be old or young, because the UN opens its doors to whether you're 18 years old. That's the maximum it can be. Sorry if you're 81. And if you're 18, that's the lowest you can start applying for the UN. So that's a good thing. So debunking another myth is when people apply, or when people think about the UNV, they think that you must relocate abroad. No, you don't need to relocate. I'm sorry for those who thought that if they get an UN volunteer opportunity, you can say bye-bye to your protection. And I would love to relocate for 1 year or 6 months and be like, you know what? I just don't have to deal with politics of our country anymore. I wouldn't love that. But that's not always the case. Because depending on the type of volunteering opportunity you're applying for, most can be online, so you don't need to relocate. But there are specific international assignments that international arrangements are done, and depending on the opportunities, as I have just said, the work may take place at UN premises or remotely. The 2026 framework also includes full-time, part-time, and short-term possibility. So debunking another myth, thinking that a general profile is just enough. I want you guys to come close. Let's talk like adults. The probability of 1,000 people at a particular time applying for the same role which you are applying for being slim is 0. So meaning the competition is very, very high. This is not to discourage you, but to remind you that unique is often better, because eligibility gets you to the front door. As I said, the UN is very competitive. If the role requires something like community mobilization, what they're going to be looking for or at your CV is how many people have you mobilized before? How many people have you mobilized to speak against FGM or child labor? Because if it requires data analysis, specify the software, specify the size of the data, specify the amount of people who will be vaccinated during a specific time you were employed for the WHO. So myth number 6 is that the UNV is only for humanitarian or development specialists. That is one part of the ecosystem. The ecosystem is huge. So UN entities and eligible partners also need capabilities such as communication, research, data monitoring, and evaluation, project coordination, technology, translation, design, administration. We can go on and on. So the mistake people do make is searching by organization name rather than searching by the professional function. Start with the strongest transferable skill, and then you can start narrowing it down, or you can start now expanding to something which you can or you are open to learning. A communications role in a health program may value sector knowledge, but it still needs someone who can produce strong communication work, and your route into the UN system may be through the function you already know well. So myth number 7, and I was a victim of this myth, is that once you've worked a couple of UNV opportunities, it automatically qualifies you to a permanent UN job. This myth most likely creates false expectations. So when you're doing either an online or an on-site, and you clearly saw that this opportunity had a time lapse, or rather it had an expiration date of either 1 month, 3 months. So when those 3 months actually did kind of end, and you're there waiting for your, hey, you know what, we love what you did, we're going to give you an offer letter, we're going to give you a contract for 2 years, 10 years, you got the job because you were part of the UN. I hate to burst your bubbles, but the UN volunteer assignment can give you very credible work experience, even make your CV lucrative, and expose you to UN working methods, but it is not an automatic conversion into a staff contract. So you still need to compete for future roles and meet their eligibility requirements. So points to remember is, when you get an opportunity either on-site or online, this does not qualify you for a future role in the UN. It just gives you a leverage in the career field or in the career market, and So do not reject yourself based on outdated assumption. Neither should you blindly apply. So if you want more practical guidance in building your career in competitive international organizations, make sure you subscribe and comment the UNV myth or misconception you believe before watching this video. Bye!